A lot of people forget or ignore the fact that the historical Buddha was a yogi, that he was actually a North Indian. So much like Jesus was a Jew, so in order to understand Jesus' teaching, you have to understand the background, the historical background. So in order to understand the Buddha's teaching, you have to understand that he was a yogi. And so if you study the yogic tradition, it talks about Shiva, right? Shiva was one of the three gods, and he's called the Adi Yogi, the original yogi. And he talks about the 114 chakras. And if you can open one of them, then you become enlightened. So historical Buddha was actually the one that discovers just one. So he actually learned less than 1% of what Shiva had to offer. And so when you study meditation and Buddhism or whatever tradition that you want, whether it's Theravada or Mahayana or Tibetan, it all comes back to that. It all comes back to the yogi tradition. And so what does the word yoga means, right? This is what we use. When we say yoga, it means hatha yoga. It's a very tiny aspect of the yoga, which has to do with the form. But the word yoga came from the Indian word called Y-U-J, okay, which means yoke, right? It's when you have two oxen and you want them to synchronize, you put a wooden bar in front of them. That's the yoke. And so the word yoked, Y-U-J, it meant that. It meant union of the mind and the body. So how do you create a union between your mind and the body? You need like a rubber band or a harness, and that harness is the chi. So after we do all that, we sit only for 5 minutes or 3 minutes actually today, because we're looking for quality. Right? So when you have all the chi in you, number one, you don't fall asleep. You don't practice lazy Zen. Number two is that your mind is actually one with your body. So you don't drift away and start to think about all these other things that hinders your practice. Otherwise, you'll be practicing what's called monkey Zen. Okay? So that's what we do. What we do here is ultimately, for me anyway, is the liberation of the mind. It's the liberation of the mind. Okay? Okay? Open your eyes. That's all the time we have. So I talk about the historical Buddha being a yogi, that he was actually practicing all the yoga tradition before he found his own path, which is one of the 114 chakras that was taught by Shiva. So what he discovered is that, essentially, using the modern language, is that our brain is not the entirety of our intellect. That our spiral cord is as important to us as the brain. In fact, if you think about it, all of our nerve ending, whether it's from the body, the eye, the ear, the tongue, they don't go to the brain. They actually don't go to the brain. They go to the spiral cord. And then it's from the spiral cord that goes to the brain. So when we study the 5 skandhas, the first one is the form, the second one, and the third one like that. It actually talks about how the body interacts with the physics, generate the neural signal, and the neural signal is collected by the spiral cord before it delivers to the brain. So the difference between the brain and the spiral cord is that the spiral cord is actually very inclusive. It doesn't make distinctions between you and me. It's a very standard, it's a very simple thing. It's a brain that is exclusive, that separates you and me from everyone else, right? So the idea of the Buddhist teaching is really to go back to our original existence, which is one of energy. And when you're pure energy, you don't make distinctions between you and me. It's all of one. It's all of compassion and loving kindness. So part of that practice is to focus on your breathing and the space with the idea that you're actually, of all the things that you want to give up your own physical existence, which is your breathing. That's amazing that you actually are willing to give up your own breathing, to actually come to recognition that your breathing is a bodily function that needs none of your supervision. It can do that all on its own. That's amazing. That's amazing. So anyway, I'll give you a taste of that. We'll keep on practicing, right? So we cover a lot of ground.